You're watching the legal breakdown. So, Glenn, Mike Johnson, the Republican speaker, made some news this week by claiming that his team is working to blur out the faces of those January 6 participants to protect them from prosecution. Here's a clip of that.
Trust the American people to draw their own conclusions. They should not be dictated by some narrative and accept that as fact. So they can review the tapes themselves. We're going through a methodical process of releasing them as quickly as we can. As you know, we have to blur some of the faces of persons who participated in the events of that day because we don't want them to be retaliated against and to be charged by the DOJ and to have other concerns and problems. So that's a slow process to get it done. We're working steadily on it. We've hired additional personnel to do that, and all of those tapes ultimately at the end will be out so everybody can see them and draw their own conclusion.
So I've covered this from a political perspective on this channel, and you can click the link on the screen to watch that video. But Glenn, from a legal perspective, is what Mike Johnson's doing here obstruction of justice? That's something that we've heard throw out before. So I'm trying to get a sense of whether what he's doing right here is obstructing justice.
Brian, as a former career prosecutor, some might say I like to find crimes under every rock and around every corner. I don't think this constitutes a crime. Now, I think it is beyond just poor judgment because what he's doing is giving a little holiday aid and comfort to the people who were probably unlawfully on the Capitol grounds on January 6th and may have even attacked the Capitol, assaulted police officers. We don't know precisely what each person did, but I don't think it qualifies as the crime of obstructing justice. And here's why. When you obstruct justice, you basically have to interfere in the machinery of a criminal investigation or the machinery of a prosecution. And I have to believe that the FBI and the Department of Justice has all of the tapes of what happened that day. They have been pouring through them. In fact, they have been bringing charges against something like 1,200 insurrectionists now, folks who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. And there are more charges to come, we have been told. They have introduced clips, video clips of this precise footage in the many criminal prosecutions that have been ongoing in federal court in Washington, D.C. So by releasing these things to the public and blurring out the faces of the folks who may have been committing crimes on the Capitol grounds that day, he's not really impeding the law enforcement investigation or the prosecution necessarily. Now, the devil's always in the details. If you did a deep dive investigation on the impact to ongoing investigations and prosecutions of the release of these videos, it might be that you could begin to build a case in the direction of obstruction of justice or another related crime, accessory after the fact. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I think it's very unlikely that there would be enough evidence to charge. So even though I can be accused of wanting to find criminal conduct everywhere in every circumstance, I don't think we have it here. And just to finish the thought, accessory after the fact, that's a related crime to obstruction. That says when you know somebody has committed an offense in violation of the laws of the United States and you do something to help that person avoid being apprehended, being tried, being punished for their crime, you might be an accessory after the fact to that crime because you've done something to assist the perpetrator to get away with the crime. Again, it kind of creeps up close to that line, but I don't think it qualifies such that Mike Johnson could be arrested for having committed a federal offense by releasing these videos. I do maintain that in a very real sense, common sense, not necessarily in a legal way, he's giving aid and comfort to these folks because he is putting into the public square pictures of people who may very well have been engaged in at least the minor crime, the misdemeanor of what we call unlawful entry onto Capitol grounds. That's a glorified term that we use in the District of Columbia to basically talk about trespass. So these people may very well be in the process of committing crimes, and he's blurring out their faces. Feels like he's giving these potentially misdemeanor criminals aid and comfort, which again creeps close to the line of giving aid and comfort to an insurrection or insurrectionists. But again, I don't think it's legally actionable, but boy, is it a bad and unpatriotic thing to do.
Well, Glenn, to that point, these federal prosecutors have had these videos of all of the people who participated in the events of January 6th for years. So what's Mike Johnson talking about when he says he's protecting these people from the DOJ?
You know, that is really as unseemly a thing as I've heard him say. If there's evidence on those videos of people committing crimes against the United States on January 6th, trying to interfere with the peaceful transfer of presidential power, it's pretty damn offensive for him to say he doesn't want the Department of Justice, the FBI, the criminal justice system to hold them accountable for those crimes. I mean, that really is offensive and just kind of a violation of what we should expect of our elected officials when it comes to actually enforcing the rule of law.
What does it say that he's framing what the DOJ would do as, quote, retaliation? Like, I'm old enough to remember when holding someone to account for their illegal activity was just called justice, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't know why you have that quaint notion that holding
Right.
people accountable for their crimes represents accountability and justice. You know, this is more of the perversion of the power of Congress, because think about the committee that they have that's all about the weaponization of the Department of Justice. Why do they claim the Department of Justice is being weaponized? Because it is going about holding accountable a Republican former president of the United States who committed multiple federal felonies. To them, that's weaponization. To, I think, most normal thinking, democracy loving, rule of law oriented people, it's accountability and justice.
Glenn, what does it say that a party that brands itself the party of law and order is currently openly and actively kind of carrying water for criminals?
You know, it says that we live in a post-irony, post-hypocrisy age when the Republicans can say that the people who attacked the police officers, the Capitol police officers, the Metropolitan Police Department, the local DC city cops, beat them to within an inch of their lives, some of them. Many of them are now disabled. Some of them ultimately died. And calling the people who attack the officers that way patriots and pledging to pardon them, support them, give them aid and comfort shows the true colors of the Republican Party today. They are willing to sacrifice the blue, sacrifice police officers to, you know, their orange god, Donald Trump. And I don't know how we've gotten here. I think we have to continue to sound the alarm. So there is no earthly chance for Donald Trump to retake the power of the presidency, only to experience more of what we experienced not only on January 6th, but during Donald Trump's presidency and in the aftermath of Donald Trump's presidency. The good news is Donald Trump remains criminally indicted in 4 separate felony cases, both federal and state. He's being prosecuted up and down the eastern seaboard. He will go to trial, barring the Supreme Court throwing sand in the gears. He will go to trial beginning on March 4, and he will be found guilty, I believe, by a jury probably by the end of April, early May, and that will be one enormous step toward accountability and justice for what he did to the American people.
That was well said. I want to finish off with this because I feel like people are going to watch this and have this question. You know, you had alluded earlier to the fact that Mike Johnson was hewing dangerously close to giving aid or comfort to these people who are insurrectionists. I mean, a judge found that Donald Trump himself incited an insurrection, so that would lend itself to this idea that those who partook in it were the insurrectionists. If it's in the Constitution that you are no longer qualified to run for office if you've given aid or comfort to those who participated in an insurrection, how does this not disqualify Mike Johnson, someone like Mike Johnson, for saying something like this? And is that provision in the Constitution even enforceable?
It is enforceable. The question is, how is it enforceable? Just like every federal statute on the books, Brian, the Constitution can't assert itself. These are not self-executing provisions such that if Mike Johnson, after taking an oath of allegiance to the Constitution, which he took when he became a member of Congress, after that time he engaged in or gave aid and comfort to the insurrection or insurrectionists, the Constitution is unequivocal. He is disqualified from holding office. But the Constitution can't rise up and assert itself. It takes the good men and women of law enforcement, of the FBI, of the Department of Justice to assert it. And thus far, there has been an unwillingness. We don't have the will. We don't have the determination to have the institutions of government rise up, take responsibility for holding accountable the insurrectionists who are still in Congress and still trying to kill our democracy from within. I hope there's a master plan that we don't yet know about that is being, executed at the Department of Justice to hold all insurrectionists in and out of Congress accountable. I wish I saw some indication in what we do know is going on in the criminal prosecutions. I wish I saw some indication that would give me confidence that that master plan is at work. Because if we continue to let insurrectionists serve in public office, we are basically giving our republic away to bad actors, to the dark forces, to kind of the worst among us. And I don't think we should be in a position where we're just willing to give our republic away.
Yeah, and just to build on exactly that, I think by failing to prosecute these people who deserve prosecution is giving them a tacit permission structure to go ahead and do it again. Not just them, but other people who may want to do the same thing. So that just kind of underscores how important it is to prosecute everybody who engages in this type of activity. So with that said, we'll obviously stay on top of this as we have any more news on this front, as well as any prosecutions that are happening right now. So for those watching, if you want to follow along, please make sure to subscribe. The links are right here on the screen. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.